The Pokemon Legends ZA DLC is now out, and we have some pretty big move pool buffs for some returning Pokemon. Keldeo now learns Ice Beam, giving it a means of dealing with dragon types that's not Icy Wind. It can also now set up Stealth Rock and also go for Earth Power, so take that Toxapex. Garchomp now has access to Nasty Plot to boost its special attack. Glamoro's Mortal Spin is no longer a signature move, as Roserade, the Scolipede line, and Overqwil all learn it, giving them a means of dealing with entry hazards like Stealth Rock and Spike. They gave Heatran First Impression, which may not seem like much at first glance, but that's not the case if you're Ogerpon Wellspring. Milotic finally has a good setup move to boost its special attack and Calm Mind. These are just some of the many moveset buffs that came with the Pokemon Legends ZA DLC. So let's talk about them. Before we get into the buffs, I just want to say this video in particular will not have any spoilers of new megas from the DLC of Pokemon Legends ZA. So you don't have to worry about that. You can feel free to listen. Give me your thoughts down below on these buffs, and let's jump right into it. So as I said in the intro, Keldeo has Ice Beam, Stealth Rock, and Earth Power. For Ice Beam in particular, this is really cool, especially on Choice Spec sets, because it has a chance to just raw knockout Dragonite through multi-scale. Of course, it also gives it an easy way to punish Pokemon like Dragapult upon switching, Latios, etc, etc. I will say in Dragapult's case, it wasn't taking 2 hits from Choice Specs Keldeo anyway, unless it was a fighting move and coming in on an immunity. But I think it's a really, really nice punish for Keldeo. But I want to talk about the Stealth Rock aspect. I think Stealth Rock is extremely cool because back in the day we used to run Focus Sash Lead Terrakion. Keldeo can do the exact same thing, right? Running Stealth Rock, that, Scald, and then, Surf, Surf, and then its Secret Sword, if it really wants. So I think this really is cool for the draft aspect. For those that don't know what Pokemon Draft is, basically kind of like actual draft. You're drafting Pokemon as players, and then you're building versus your opponent who also drafted Pokemon, and you're counter teaming them. So I think Stealth Rock is really cool for anti-lead, but Earth Power in particular seemed pretty cool for me too. If you're, again, in a draft setting or just in general, being a means that can two-shot Galarian Slowking plus like Toxapex, basically just bulky poison types that are actually relevant in the metagame from a singles perspective. I know if you're playing doubles, you're hearing Galarian Slowking and Toxapex, you're like, what the hell is that? But I like this aspect as well, giving a Calm Mind variant a means of dealing with even a Haze set like that too. I really, really, really like Ice Beam in particular because bulkier sets with Calm Mind weakness policy just completely smoke Pokemon like Latios and Latios, especially if you run like, I'm going back to a draft aspect, but especially if you run like a max HP variant like that. So I really, really like just the idea of being able to punish those dragons, while also obviously being relevant for grass types in general. Not that a lot of them really want to come in on Keldeo unless they're Pokemon that have the grass plus poison typing, because if they're not resisting fighting moves, they're really not going to be taking hits. I think the biggest one that's currently not in the game that I could see that this Ice Beam really benefits is like Assault Vest Tangrowth, or at least Keldeo's case versus Assault Vest Tangrowth, since you will be 2-hit KOing it with that. Persian now has access to Spikes and Toxic Spikes, and you're like, well, why does this matter? Well, considering Persian is a parting shot foul play bot, you've now given it access to a means of dealing damage without caring about what comes in, right? Obviously, Persian already also has access to knockoff. So just like a set like this, while being able to lay up spikes, you have Fur Coat, so you don't really care about the physical contact moves coming at you. Or just, excuse me, not contact moves, just physical in general. I was thinking about Fluffy for a second. It's been a minute since I've seen Fur Coat, since when I play Almost Any Ability, the metagame that allows for Almost Any Ability. Fur Coat, hella banned, but Fluffy you're allowed to use. But you're already tanking hits, so this is really cool for support. I really like this both in lower tier as well as also a draft aspect, because just a really, really, really cheap spiker that also doubles as a physical wall, that also doubles as speed control as well with Thunder Wave. But it's also, again, has a great speed tier too. So I like this because you get so much value out of this Pokemon. I also want to note that regular Persian does get access to Spike. Good for it. Obviously less viable. Sorry, that was really sarcastic, but that wasn't trying. That's just my voice right now. And we stayed up for like 5 hours streaming last night. Then I stayed in call for 2 hours after watching old videos with Gator, Chimpack, Mason Moet. I don't know why I said Gator. Gator was in the old videos. It felt like he was there with us, but Gator was in a different call. Anyway, we have this just giving you some nice viability on this Pokemon. I think both T-Spike and Spike are huge for this Pokemon in general. Starmie now has access to Triple Axle. Doesn't really benefit regular Starmie, but Mega Starmie, especially because we're all expecting it to have Pure Power, Really big, right? There's a big difference between a move like Triple Axle and then a move like Ice Spinner. The power difference is insane. If you actually look at the Legends ZAOU pet mod, which is the metagame currently on Pokemon Showdown, which actually I got added to the council last night, which is crazy. We were streaming Lax and 3D, very good players. We're in Calm and Blunder as well. And and they said, you want to be on the ZAOU council? You play it more than us, and we're on the council. I was like, what? And they said, you're already in. And then they added me a Discord link, and now I'm in the council. So it works like that, I guess, sometimes. I was like, what the hell? No. But I will be going in there and changing abilities. No longer will Mega Floyd Eternal have Angie. Get out of here. But anyway, Triple X is really cool for that. Gourgeist, my whole point about the whole monologue was that Gourgeist was a pretty decent switch-in to Starmie, and now it is no longer. I put Charge Beam here. I think Starmie should have always had Charge Beam. This is in particular for regular Starmie. Now, obviously, Starmie does have the... or did rather have the Meteor Beam plus Power Herb combination if it wanted to raise a special attack, but that's really all it had last generation. It's not in the game this generation, but that's really all it had last generation outside of like Choice Specs or Life Orb. And Starmie doesn't really hit as hard as it did before, but I definitely think that a Charge Beam Recover set, and whether it be in Draft or even just in regular, has usage or has a valid case, because just being able to raise Starmie's special attack 70% of the time is absolutely huge. You gave something with no way to raise a special attack outside of an item lock, right? Just a way of doing it. So it's weak, obviously, but Starmie has incredible coverage between Hydro Pump, Ice Beam, Psyshock, Thunderbolt. Previously, you could just use Charge Beam on it now if you really want to. So I like it, giving it a chance to be a sweeper on the special side. Whenever I see Crobat, I get really mad that it's not in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. This Pokemon, and even Golbat in lower tiers, would be really cool with Terra, and I think it's just such a unique Pokemon. But they gave it access to knockoff. This is incredible. One of the things that Crobat loved to do was be a stall breaker, right? Stall breaker with Super Fang, and it just is illegal because I'm looking at it from an OB perspective. So basically, you're not able to, it's not in the game, obviously, but knockoff Super. It would be Super Fang. It would be like Brave Bird, and then you have like your Taunt Roost. And then this will allow you to stop the opponent from recovering, get off 50% on them no matter what they are. You could even sometimes they ran U-turn as well. And then ran no Brave Bird, sometimes they ran stuff like this too, just to get a lot of value out of this. Knockoff changes the game. I think knockoff Super Fang is ridiculous, especially with Taunt Roost. And this is an insane stall breaker by itself. I don't even think you need Brave Bird on this in particular, just being able to always get rid of items. You're poison flying, right? So you're not weak to Toxic. You cannot be Toxic. You cannot, unless you're Salazzle, which you're faster than, which you can taunt. You have really good overall bulk, like 80, 80, 85, and Generation 9 doesn't seem great, but when you have a bunch of resistances, the big one, a key one being Fighting, Bug for U-turn, things like that too, and then you're not like 4 times weak to anything. So if you were 4 times weak to Stone Edge will always knock you out. But like, you're not going down, especially with an HP EV spread. This is really nice. I like it as well. It's such a cool tool for Crobat. I also want to note that Crobat got access to Psychic Fangs. I didn't end up putting Psychic Fangs on it because I'm not sure where you fit it. It also has Infiltrator, so it's kind of ignoring Fangs. But if you want to do it, if it's kind of ignoring screens, which Psychic Fangs obviously helps you get rid of. But being able to just stall break with this mon just sounds so cool, man. And knockoff is nice because you're getting rid of some of the most annoying items in the game, right? Heavy duty boots, rocking helmet, leftovers for recovery. So I think this is a big buff for Crobat and also Golbat, assuming that homie gets it as well. So Golbat being able to get this would be really cool because the Eviolite sets basically would run the exact same thing. I think you can also get away with knockoff Toxic as well with this Pokemon. So this, just being able to stall break, particularly with this, obviously Brave Bird can be used here too, but this is such a big buff to Crobat and what it already did. So it just makes it even better in that case. So I put this for Blaziken, but I don't really want to say it's going to be like a top move or even used too much on Blaziken itself. I also want to note that Machamp also now has access to Drain Punch, which I think is pretty cool for a recovery move. I wish he got Mach Punch. But Drain Punch is interesting because Blaziken's fighting moves always, at least on the physical side, you're usually using close combat, high jump kick in the past, or like low kick if you're playing like in the Ubers tier. Basically the tier with legendaries where it's almost always 120 base power. Outside of that, you weren't really doing anything. Like you have your Sky Uppercut, but you're not using that. That's in game. Keep that in game. And I guess or Gen 3, but Just in general, obviously, like if you're playing competitive. And then on the special side, you obviously had Aura Sphere, Focus Blast. But I think Bulk Up has some interesting use case. In the past, in Generation 8, Blaziken would run Swords Dance Leftovers, and then it would just run Protect sets with Flare Blitz. And it would pair this with, the team would be Blaziken, right? And then it'd have Metal, another Malt with Leftovers that also appreciates Grassy Terrain with Protect. And then it would have Tornadus, and it obviously had Rillaboom if you're having the Grassy Terrain. So the teams... the team would rely on getting in Pokemon like Blaziken via U-turn with Rillaboom and Tornadus, and then while Blaziken is killing itself with Flare Blitz while doing massive damage to you, by going for Protect at the end of the turn, you get the leftovers at the end of the turn. Then your opponent goes out to something that counters you. You go for Protect, and then you get the leftovers plus Grassy Terrain. So you're slowly but surely healing Blaziken. So I think the Drain Punch has some interesting use case with that, especially if you also take into account dual screens. So Light Screen plus Reflect. Giving you an option just to do that. I do think that to counteract the Flare Blitz, basically. I do think Close Combat's perfect, right? But the mons that you're typically hitting with Blaziken's Flare Blitz are mons that you have to Flare Blitz. Pokemon like Gliscor and Landorus Therian, for example. So being able to have a move to go for that nuke, do 40-50% to yourself, and then they bring out another mon. And because you're not like -1 defense from, let's say, going for close combat, you're not in extreme speed range for Dragonite or things like that, or you're not in priority range from other Pokemon. So Drain Punch just allowing you to heal. I mean, 120 base power is really nice. I don't think Mega Blaziken would ever run this. Mega Blaziken should almost always run close combat because it has the disgusting attack stat increase. And Blaziken should, for the most part, not run this either. But I could see a use case in like Draft with dual screens, Leftovers, or Weakness Policy, running SD Drain Punch and making it almost impossible to revenge kill this Pokemon. Especially when you get away with the speed boost, boosting your speed on top of that. Zangoose now is Fake Out. Now, not the biggest buff for Zangoose, but the cool thing about Fake Out is that it allows you to activate your Toxic Orb immediately and get your Toxic boost. I really wish, or I really hope in the future, they rework this to make it be one, like, instead of taking the toxic poison, it's just like regular poison. So you're taking 12% instead of over time you're taking a lot more. Or they rework it so he only takes like 6%. Or he just takes no damage from poison, to be honest. Or just like literally 6% like burn. But Fake Out's really cool because it allows you to activate your Toxic Orb and get your Facade online immediately, right? Without having to run something like Protect. In the past, Zangoose did run Protect. While nowadays, if you go back to old school, if you look at like even Smogon, for instance, and you look at like the old school sets, none of them have Protect on it, but it did have Protect on them back in the day. But nowadays, you'll just have like Swords Dance Facade, Close Combat, Quick Attack, or Knockoff, depending on what you're doing, or just all-out attacker, for which I think benefits more from Fake Out. Again, just having a move to activate and then get a strong Facade off, but also later having a Fake Out that will stop your opponent from moving, right? It's a flinching move, guaranteed, but also now can give you basically a 2-hit combo. I think it's really nice. It also just gives it, like, this is also, I think, really cool, right? Because Fake Out plus Quick Attack, call me Meowth in Little Cup. You're going for that. Those are toxic boosted. So you're doing a lot of damage, especially coming off of 115 base attack. I just want to show you a damage calc on a Pokemon like Greninja, and obviously just take out account Water Turrican. But Fake Out does 44 to 51, and Quick Attack's obviously the same base power. So the fact that if you're already activated, and you can come in on something like this, and I'm saying Greninja, which is still a really good Pokemon, obviously. And we know it has a Mega, and we know it now has Nasty Plot and things like that, so it's amazing. But just like an example of like a frail, strong attacker. And whereas Fake Out plus Quick Attack actually gives you the combo to, if Stealth Rock are up, you're always KOing Greninja. If Greninja's taking any damage, you're KOing Greninja. You even have, you know, a really small % chance to KO with that. So I think it's really nice. It's kind of similar to how Mega Metacham would run Fake Out plus Bullet Punch. I always hated when they did that, but it was very greedy, but it would work out, right? And in this case, it's the same thing, but these are stab. So you're actually getting massive damage off. Also kind of similar to how, like, if you played National Dex, when... if you played the National Dex tier, which allowed for every Pokemon, when Terastallization was allowed in that tier, you'd have Fake Out plus Extreme Speed Pikachu with Terra Normal. Now, the boost that Pikachu got from the Light Ball and then Terra Normal was insane. Extreme Speed is obviously way stronger as well, but you basically have the 1-2 punch combination. It just gives Zangoose really good anti-offense, whereas you were more of a wall breaker before. You're still a wall breaker with Facade, but now you have more anti-offense tools because Fake Out Quick Attack is a tried and true combo, and it's very, very solid. Before we talk about how awesome Calm Mind Milotic is, I just want to say, and I was just thinking this while I was like looking at some of the other buffs. I was like, I love talking about Pokemon from a Theorymon aspect and what they can do, and I love when Pokemon get buffed. This is some of my favorite time. I know this has nothing to do with the video, and you're like, yo, go get on with the buffs. My bad. But like, this is some of my favorite time in competitive Pokemon. Obviously, being able to use the Pokemon is incredible too in a competitive aspect in all times. That's why I play every format. But just being able to talk and have like, oh man, this could make this so cool. And I think it's also really funny when they turn out amazing, but I also think when they turn out the opposite, it's also hilarious. So let me know if you guys like love, like, I feel like Theorymon is some of the most fun stuff when it comes to Pokemon, especially when it's within like reasonable bounds, right? I'm not saying, oh man, they're gonna give this mega huge power. Oh man, when Baxcalibur comes out, it's gonna, which it did just come out, and that's like official revealed, so that's not considered a spoiler. When Mega Baxcalibur is here, oh, they're gonna give it ice huge power, so it gets the like obviously that's not really reasonable, but just being able to talk about like Milotic now have access to Calm Mind, right? After years, you have 100 base special attack, you have 125 special defense, you can now Calm Mind up. You almost always run physically defensive anyway because you're taking hits from these physical threats, U-turns, earthquakes, you know, you're taking hits from prominent threats. You already have so much special defense, you don't need special defense. You naturally wall bulky water types anyway, especially when most of their coverage comes down to Ice Beam, right? So a lot of them can't even touch you. But I think Calm Mind is such a nice buff for Milotic, especially. I wish I had it in this generation in particular, because for those who don't know, Milotic does have access to Draining Kiss. So imagine a Calm Mind Terra Fairy Draining Kiss, Scald, Recover set. Nasty as hell. But Calm Mind definitely buffs its viability and also makes it just a lot harder to take down. Unless you're like a wall breaker like Choice Band or a Guts boosted Mon, you're not really 2-hit KOing or OHKOing this Mon ever anyway, and just Calm Mind makes it even harder. It did have options like Coil before, and it had Dragon Dance, so it's crazy that it had boosting moves, but it took so long for it to get one that, in my opinion, is most relevant to what it can do. I think this is going to make it extremely hard to take down as a bulky water, especially because opposing bulky waters, like typically you sit on them and take the hits. And then by sitting on them, you're literally doing that, just that, right? You're sitting on them, you're taking their hits, you don't really care. Maybe they'll burn you if they have Scald, activating your Marvel Scale, making you even harder to take down. But now you're able to Calm Mind up and just beat them, right? Whether it be with Alluring Voice or Ice Beam, oh, you'll take your time because it's not going to do that much, but over time it will. So I think Calm Mind is really cool. I put Liquidation there. I don't think Liquidation is the craziest of a buff, but there are people that use Coil Milotic, and I'm not talking about if you're using Coil Milotic in a VGC or double setting where you're using Coil to boost the accuracy of Muddy Water and also your Hypnosis. That is very valid. That is extremely valid. But when it comes to singles, trying to use Coil Milotic, I've seen Coil Flame Warp Facade Milotic, trying to give it any way of using Coil plus Recover or anything like that, just making it difficult to deal with. I do think Coil plus Recover has some viability in terms of making it harder to take down. But like, you're not really running much else besides that. You'll see that in draft. But I think just Calm Mind just really does boost Milotic from more of just, okay, I'm going to Flip Turn, I'm going to Haze, I'm going to Scald, I'm going to Ice Beam, to, okay, you have to worry about my physically and special defensive sets, but also now you have to worry about me sweeping you without just using those. Them getting rid of Toxic on Milotic was pretty big because that was its main means of dealing with opposing bulky waters and just bulkier Pokemon in general that don't really care too much about Scald, especially if they're special attackers. Like Scald, yes, over time, burn does start to add up, but if they're a special attacker, they're way less likely to care about a Scald burn, especially with it doing 6% down instead of the crazy 12% of burn, man. If you've been playing old gens anytime, that 12% burn, really, you feel it. You feel it. That's just taking your damage. Or like in-game, you feel it, man. If you're playing any ROM hacks or anything, or even just like previous generation. But yeah, Calm Mind, really nice for Milotic's viability. And just giving it a means of also like, you can't go out to strong special electric types to KO it after, right? Let's take, both of them are lower tier. So let's take the Milotic versus like a Kilowatt. Like this Mon is PU, crazy, right? I've used this Mon in OU plenty of times. Even I loved offensive Gen 4 with Hidden Power Electric, Ice Beam, Hydro Pump. You were faster than Heatran. So you get like surprise KOs on that. You 2-hit KO like Starmie, you smoke Gyarados with rocks. But none of that matters, right? That's just old head remembering it. But the takedown of like Kilowattrel, right? Kilowattrel already had to 2-shot you when it came to Thunderbolt anyway. But the big thing is Kilowattrel wouldn't die back. But like Milo being able to take that on in a 1v1 setting, or just being able to better take on Pokemon like Special Iron Valiant, being able to set up alongside a Golden Go, Nasty Plot. Yes, it's going to have a +1 boost on you, but if you're Split F Combine, it's going to be crazy. Being able to take like Freeze Dries easier from Kyurem and stuff like that, and then Drain Kiss back sounds really, really cool. Especially if Pokemon Champions, when that come out, we're able to still keep Terra and then have that 1v1 with Calm Mind. Obviously, I take everything from here with a grain of salt because these aren't guaranteed to come into the next generation. But a lot of them did when it came to Legends Arceus, and a lot of them didn't, right? We lost like Ice Beam, I think Togekiss and Ice Beam Gardevoir. But I believe Togekiss also had Moonblast in Legends Arceus, but I could be wrong. So just keep it all with a grain of salt. I do think a lot of them are going to follow up. I think a lot of them make sense thematically. Now, here is my favorite Mon with buffs. Okay, Kecleon's not my favorite Mon, but I don't know why I couldn't get over how cool Kecleon getting these moves are. Had Protean not been nerfed, right? If Protean still changed every single time, because the way Kecleon worked with Protean back in the day was, Protean, the way it previously worked, was that every single time you used the move, you would change it to that type prior. So you'd always get stabbed, right? It's why Greninja was disgusting. It's why Cinderace with Libero was disgusting in Generation 8, and why I ended up being banned. It's why Gren got banned in previous generations too. But yeah, we have Kecleon would basically run like Fake Out, Shadow Sneak, Sucker Punch. It would be the priority combo. I like the idea of it getting first impression. This does not matter at all, right? But if you need a low tier to get up Stealth Rock and you want to be able to check Pokemon, this is your set. This is not your set, but a Kecleon now is actually first impression, so that's pretty cool for its offensive ones. I think Shed Tail is also pretty cool too. I don't think Shed Tail has really much viability on Kecleon. There are way better Shed Tailers if Shed Tail is allowed. Earthworm is obviously amazing. Cyclops are highest regenerator. I think Earthworm being able to get the slow Shed Tail with Citrus Berry is really, really good, especially because it has a ground immunity, one of the most common typings and one of the best offensive typings and even defensive in the game. But Shed Tail is still cool, and then I think Power Up is really cool too. I want Kecleon to get a Mega Evolution, or actually I want Kecleon to get a bigger evolution. I need just a bigger lizard. That's it. Well, it's a gecko, but I need it to get more Kecleon. We need more Kecleon. But yeah, being able... Evie, why are you looking at me? My dogs are like looking at me like Kecleon is like a trigger word for them. Also, really fun stuff as well. Got was Scale Shot. Again, no real competitive viability, but just fun. And it got conversion and conversion too, which is like, why? But anyway, I think first impression has some fun low tier viability. Your boy would definitely be running this, okay? In the ZU of ZU, what comes after the ZU? It's just called bad. The tier's just called bad after that, right? There's no pun or anything. There's no more PU, no more ZU. It's just bad. And I'm gonna use it because I like Kecleon. Anyway, Chimecho, I believe we saw it use Boom Burst already in the trailers, but Chimecho has some cool moves. For those that don't know, Chimecho has a Mega Evolution. This was, again, officially revealed. And Chimecho's Mega Evolution is Psychic Steel. Really nice, sharing the typing with Jirachi, Metagross, Bronzong, etc. This is pretty cool because now it has Flash Cannon as its real thing. I don't want to talk too much about the stats of Mega Chimecho at all. I'll talk about that in a future video. Or you can check out the stream I did, but I'll definitely be breaking down individually and going more in depth. But it has good stats. And if it's able to keep like Levitate and has like Calm Mind, I think Flash Cannon is nice for the stab, obviously. Boom Burst is really interesting too. Boom Burst is weird on Pokemon that don't have it as stab, because it always leads to believe, oh, are they going to give them some sort of 8 ability, basically like Aerialate and things like that, Refrigerate, etc. In this case, Steeliate or whatever, Ironate, whatever. I don't think that's actually going to be the case now. They also, I mean, they already gave it to Screamtail and stuff like that too. It's a sound-esque Pokemon. Chimecho is a sound-esque Pokemon, so they're just giving it a strong sound move, in my opinion. I think Meteor Beam is really interesting for regular Chimecho too. But I like the Flash Cannon. I like the Flash Cannon for when it Mega Evolves. I think Cosmic Power sets and Calm Mind sets look really good at that, especially if it ends up keeping like Levitate and being able to use Recover from that. I just want to say that they finally gave it stab, which I thought was cool. Other interesting moves they gave it was Water Pulse. Not that you really need that, but there you go. You find something like a Heatran, you want to beat it quicker. Honestly, I don't even think Water Pulse is better than Store Power. I just think you want to beat it quicker, but no, you're not doing any type of damage with really that. But yeah, just getting stabbed to the Mega when it comes, I think is pretty cool. Meteor Beam has some funny combinations, maybe with Power Up on regular Chimecho, if you want to try like a Trick Room set with Meteor Beam Power Up, and then you go for Healing Wish after you get your strong move off. Like, why? And then Boom Burst is obviously cool as an offensive option, but nothing really crazy for this particular. But for the Mega, I think it's really nice. Salamence now has access to Scale Shot. This opens up a lot of loaded dice potential for this Pokemon. especially with Moxie. Oh my god, the combo is actually really, really nice. I love Scale Shot. Now you have a really strong move on Salamence without locking yourself into Outrage, and it's way better than using something like Dragon Claw. Dragon Claw is just really, really weak, man. Like, it's incredibly weak how and this allows Salamence to break through multi-scale Dragonite, right, without even having to hit it, you know, more than once, as in giving multiple turns. Obviously, your Scale Shot, you're hitting minimum 4 times now if you land with loaded dice. And it just makes it a lot more of a Dragon Dance threat. I think it should have always got Scale Shot. They gave every dragon basically Scale Shot, so it makes sense that this mon finally gets it. You'll be able to make use of Moxie easier. I think the other big thing is that if you're Dragon Dancing up, Salamence has base 100 speed, right? There are Choice Scarfers and there are Booster Energy mons that definitely outspeed it, even at +1. Iron Valiant with Booster Energy always outspeed Salamence with +1, can knock it out with Moonblast, unless it Terrakion, obviously. But what if it calls it and then goes for close combat on the Terra Steel? Anyway, just having this as a more offensive option makes it a lot more difficult to deal with it. Because if you Dragon Dance up, you're already +1. Then you go for Scale Shot, now you're +2. A lot harder to deal with when it comes to this. And it just gives it good physical Dragon Stab, which it was lacking, right? Scarf sets, and you could run Outrage and things like that. But in the Fairy meta, not really perfect. I think Flame Charge is interesting. Being able to boost its speed as well. I don't think it's the craziest thing. Like, I would rather run Temper Flare on this Pokemon, which it does already run it on Dragon Dance sets sometimes. This is going to double in power, right? If you go for Earthquake on something like Corviknight coming in, then you go for Temper Flare, or you go for Earthquake on something like Golden Go coming in, then you go for Temper Flare, all doubled in power. Golden Go, if it has Air Balloon, I forgot to mention that in anything. If you go for Earthquake on a +1, on Golden Go coming in, you're killing it if it's +1. But yeah, just a really cool option, I think, for Mence. Flame Charge is like whatever. I just put it there just to say it did get Flame Charge. Maybe you could do something funny with like Life Orb mix sets. That could be cool if you don't want to run Dragon Dance, if you want to attack while doing it. But I think Scale Shot in particular is nice for both choiced sets, like Choice Band with Scale Shot. I like that better than even just Dragon Claw, because on average you're going to be doing a lot of damage anyway. And on Dragon Dance sets in particular, it just makes it, it just gives it another move. Especially like, you got to remember that Terra's not going to be around forever, right? This generation, Terra's around. So Dragon Dance Pokemon, setup Pokemon, can always flip their matchups by terrestrializing out of their weaknesses and into better types that help them deal with it, right? So obviously, Iron Valiant goes, not that it's necessarily weak to it, but it'll go from its typing to like maybe Ghost to be immune to Dragon Dance Extreme Speed from Dragonite. Obviously, again, it's not weak to it, but it'll also allow it to just go for give it stronger Shadow Ball into Golden Go. That stuff's not going to be around forever, right? So like, obviously Val's always going to be good regardless. I think actually Val gets even better in a non-Terra meta because you can't terrestrialize out of your typing to be Iron Valiant. A lot of people do that, but a Pokemon like this makes it way more difficult because I know what I'm attacking is what I'm trying to say when it comes to that. They gave Staraptor the Hello Galarian Zapdos treatment. Bulk up, knock off, Blaze Kick. Really funny when it comes to Staraptor. Also, other options they got are Low Sweep, Outrage, and Brick Break, which I think is cool too. Funny, like cool in that case. Bulk up's interesting because like Staraptor is literally the I'm going to do massive damage to you while also doing massive damage to myself, but I will get a 1-for-1 trait. And that is what Staraptor does, right? It's always Reckless Choiced, whether it be Choice Band, Choice Scarf, and you're clicking Brave Bird, you're clicking Double Edge, and then you have your U-turn, and then you have Close Combat to hit Steel types. If you're Choice Band, you don't even need Close Combat because your Brave Bird is going to two-shot every Steel type out there for the most part, outside of like Corviknight, Skarmory, but if you Terra Fly, oof. But Bulk Up is interesting, especially with like Intimidate sets. I will say that part of the reason I don't like Bulk Up as much on this guy is because it doesn't have Roost anymore. And I think Staraptor overall has like nice bulk, especially with Intimidate prior. And then if you're just always KOing yourself, like the option for Galarian Zapdos is you have, yes, Brave Bird to do too much, but you also have, on the flip side, Close Combat and Thunderous Kick, which are stab, and allowing you to actually break through the opponent as well without that. I like Knockoff, though. I like Knockoff as a means of hitting like Golden Go and things like that. I think getting rid of items is nice. Blaze Kick, I think, has some potential viability as well. Hitting Pokemon like Corviknight and Skarmory upon switching, especially with a Choice Band, you can definitely two-shot them with that, especially with Rocks up. So I like Staraptor having more viability and more options for it. I don't know how well it's going to be for Staraptor in general, especially when it faces competition from like Galarian Zapdos and even Hawlucha in this regard. But let me know your thoughts on Staraptor in general. What do you think this will be for it down below I like that Roserade now has Mortal Spin in its arsenal. I like that Roserade has a way of dealing with entry hazards. Obviously, Mortal Spin is blocked by Steel types, and in Roserade's case, that's okay because a lot of the lower tier Steel types, which is where Roserade typically ends up, are not pure Steel types. A lot of them are part ground or part rock. Again, I'm looking like lower tiers like RU and anything like that. It's a shame that Roserade's not currently in the game, period, though. But if you actually look at the RU tier, Roserade can still threaten a lot of them with outside of like Fortress, even Fortress, outside of Goodra and stuff like that, with like Leaf Storm and things like that, or even Giga Drain just for some chip overall. It has Shadow Ball as well for Jirachi at the end of the day. It's interesting because I think it just gives it a nice little tool, but with Roserade's lack of hidden power, obviously in this generation, if it was around, it could have Terra Blast, but its lack of hidden power, being able to actually touch Steel types, I'm interested to see what they do with this Pokemon. I think Mortal Spin is just a nice little buff for it, but I don't think it's anything like, oh my god, it's crazy. Because the OG set for Roserade back in the day was like Sleep Powder. I'm talking about way back in the day. Toxic Spikes or Spikes. And then you had to Leaf Storm and Sludge Bomb, your hidden power of choice. If you're playing Generation 4, you actually could not have Spikes here because Spikes with Sleep Powder were illegal. But now it is legal. But yeah, if you did something like this or like your hidden power of choice, obviously hidden power is not in the game. This would allow Roserade as a lead with Focus Sash to put someone to sleep unfavorable matchups, get up Toxic Spikes, and even Leaf Storm break sashes of opposing Pokemon, or even do massive damage or something like that. But obviously with no hidden power, and the best thing it has to hit Steel types is like what? Technician Mud Slap. if with Terra, that'd be really cool too, if it was in the game. But I'm not entirely sure. I think that it gives Roserade more viability as just like an option. I think for draft, I think it'd be really cool. But outside of that, it's kind of like, when are you really going to be able to do this for Roserade? But either way, it's still pretty cool, especially if Sleep ends up not staying banned next generation too. I think this one is the craziest one. They gave Garchomp Nasty Plot, man, which is so funny, right? They'll do everything to not give this Pokemon Dragon Dance. Obviously, Swords Dance Scale Shot is still very good, and the fact that Nasty Plot is really interesting too, because obviously it has its Dragon Stab, its Ground Stab, and Fire move. So you're actually going to be able to deal with Pokemon like Corviknight, whereas you're still being able to deal with Fairy types as well, while still having your strong Dragon move. Vacuum Wave is really interesting too, because it can allow you to pick off weakened threats like Dragonite or Greninja, depending on the tier you're playing or anything like that. So I think it has some interesting viability when it comes to this Pokemon. So I always like to mention Vacuum Wave, especially also out playing like King Gambit Sucker Punch, which is cool. But Nasty Plot's just funny. I like the fact that they gave it something new in its arsenal and that it can definitely abuse, especially with an item like Life Orb or anything like that. It's just, there's so many tools. Imagine seeing a Garchomp and you have no idea. It's going to be Rough Skin, Rocky Helmet, Stealth Rock Spikes. Oh, it's going to be Swords Dance, Loaded Dice. Oh, it's going to be Choiced, not as common these days, but could still be there. Or, oh, it's going to end up being Nasty Plot now. You have to put that as well in it. So I think it's a cool little buff for Garchomp, and also just the viability of it, just the play style you can do. It just opened up so many options for that. One of my favorite moves right here is probably Porygon-Z getting Volt Switch. A lot of times ground types are not going to come in on Porygon-Z anyway because Tri-Attack is so strong. So Ghost types might come in, Special Walls might come in. So the fact that a Choice specs a Porygon-Z with like download Special Attack Raise can get momentum on something like Blissey coming in, I think is really cool. I also mentioned Flash Cannon here. Flash Cannon isn't as like necessary when it comes to this, but considering Mega Diancie's now back, maybe on a Choice Scarf set, it could be cool. I think it's a waste of a slot. I just wanted to put that there. It just gives you a nice little draft option, but I think that Volt Switch giving this Pokemon momentum, and like it's Volt Switch versus Thunderbolt, and for the most part, you're not ending games with Thunderbolt. You're just using them to pick off something like Corviknight or anything like that. The fact that you can Volt Switch on out of there and then bring in a bigger threat to be able to deal with said Pokemon coming in, I think it's really nice. Porygon-Z is a hit and run playstyle anyway, so they gave it a move that allows it to do just that, hit and run at the same time. So I think this really, really is in Porygon-Z's favor. Rotom, all forms, got some huge buffs, okay? Rotom, all forms, got some huge buffs. First off, it has Taunt. All right, I skipped Parabolic Charge for just a second, but first off, Rotom has access to Taunt. Taunt is big, because a lot of Pokemon, even just bulkier Pokemon, like Rotom can't necessarily kill them, but they can't do much back. Like take Toxapex, for instance, right? In previous generations, Toxapex could live any hit from Rotom, not really worry about being burnt, and they can go for Toxic. Or take like a Pokemon like Tinglu that can set up hazards, or a Gliscor that's slower that can go for Toxic, or Ferrothorn attempting to go for hazards. Obviously, Ferrothorn, again, some of these Pokemon I'm mentioning right now are not in the game. But being able to taunt and stop them, I think, is huge for Rotom. Being able to stop recovery. Galarian Slowking from chilling receptioning out. Regular Slowking from doing the same thing. And just like giving Rotom this means of actually stall breaking with that, I think is crazy. I also want to note Parabolic Charge is a huge buff for Rotom as well. Because now it has a move that can attack while also healing, right? Previously, the only move that Rotom really runs is Electric, unless you're running on choice sets that run Thunderbolt, would be Volt Switch. And Volt Switch is only 5 base power stronger than Parabolic Charge, but Parabolic Charge can also heal 50% of the damage dealt while also still attacking, right? And on top of this, I'll talk about that in a second for Nasty Plot sets, but on top of this, they also gave Rotom Parting Shot. So now your Volt Switch can't even be blocked. That's it. Obviously, be careful. You're not trying to hit something with Defiant with Parting Shot, but now your Volt Switch can't be blocked. I think Parabolic Charge is huge. Being able to heal while attacking, I think, is sick. Being able to also Parting Shot into your teammates. Volt Switch can do the same thing on switches, but Parting Shot is nice because you're actually giving them opportunities to set up as well, since you're lowering their attack and special attack of the target. I think that Parabolic Charge, specifically, by the way, is kind of insane for like a set like this. This looks crazy on Rotom, right? Taunt, Nasty Plot, obviously Levitate or whatever, leftovers or anything like this. You're 1v1ing Blissey. It doesn't have Toxic anyway, but you're taunting it so it can't go for softballs. It can't go for Calm Mind, which Blissey does tend to run in OU to just beat Golden Go. It doesn't always run special attacks. Sometimes it does. It doesn't run Shadow Ball, Flamethrower, Ice Beam, whatever, but it doesn't always. But being able to taunt that, set up Nasty Plots, and then Seismic Toss is like a 4-hit KO on you with max HP, right? So you go for Parabolic Charges. You're recovering 50% of the damage dealt. On a Pokemon like Blissey, you're recovering so much HP after multiple boosts. You're recovering so much HP, and you're still stall breaking too. Pokemon like Toxapex can't Terra and would be able to Toxic you. They can't Haze or anything like that. Clodsire, your natural typing, they can't Toxic you either. If they're unaware, you beat them. If they're Water Absorb, obviously they can still be annoying, but they're usually unaware when it comes to stall. So being able to do that, I think this has opened up a new way, and it's not just Rotom Wash, right? Like I said, all the Rotom forms can do this. All the Rotom forms can taunt, including Ghost Rotom. Speaking of Ghost Rotom also now has access to Curse. Curse is interesting on regular Rotom appliances. You're just boosting its defense while lowering its speed, whatever. You're not really making use of the attack. You're kind of making use of the defense raise. But Curse on regular Rotom is interesting because you cut half your health. And I can see this being useful on dual screens lead, right? Kind of like how Dragon Ball goes for Curse after going for dual screens. Rotom can dual screen and then go for Volt Switch to bring out Mons, or it can go for Curse to lay a curse on the opponent, wearing them down. I think that's really cool in that case. But again, I really think that this has just raised Rotom's viability tenfold, right? Just literally this set, or even just Volt Switch, Parabolic Charge, or just being able to drop Pain Split if you really want to. Pain Split's obviously incredible, so you're still going to see it on sets. But the fact that Nasty Plot gets better, that it can attack while healing, that's kind of something that a Nasty Plot didn't have. Because back in the day, you would run like Substitute Nasty Plot, and that would allow you to, like during the Seismitoad meta, you know, like that, you would run like Sub Nasty Plot or anything like that. Excuse me, not Sub Nasty Plot. You would run it was Sub Nasty Plot. Sorry, yeah, it was Sub Nasty Plot, because that'll allow you to avoid Toxic from Seismitoad and things like that too. Or just in general, Nasty Plot, just be able to do damage. So I really, really, really like this. I think this is such a huge buff for Rotom. All three of these are crazy. Not parting. No, this should be Parting Shot. Obviously, Nasty Plot is crazy, but we got it last generation. All three of these, I think, are crazy for the viability, and I love the fact that they're giving multiple Pokemon Parting Shot. Another move they're giving multiple Pokemon is First Impression. Now, you might be looking at Heatran and you're like, yo, why does First Impression matter, man? First Impression doesn't do crap. It doesn't actually help out this Pokemon. You have to think about Pokemon that Heatran can reliably check now with First Impression. But don't worry, you don't have to think about it. I'll show you. These are all OU threats. Greninja, not as much. But these are all OU threats. And let me tell you something. You see this replay? I'll put this on hyper fast. Latios come out. Bang! First Impression. Ogerpon come out. Bang! First Impression. Darkrai come out. Bam! First Impression. Samurai, I don't gotta keep saying it. Now, obviously, this is Choice Band Heatran, right? So don't keep that in mind. And the attack mons are not doing anything, but I just want to show you overall. I think that while it's not like gonna be the most common move ever used on Heatran, I think it actually has competitive viability, because a lot of the mons, especially in OU, that force out Heatran. If they come in, it's just like this gives you an option into them, right? Even like Rillaboom with a faster, high horsepower or anything like that. So I think this is a cool little option on Heatran's arsenal, especially for draft. I think even in OU, if you can afford to fit it, why not, right? Literally, why not? First impression, allowing you to pick off weakened Mons. It's like having Quick Attack or Mach Punch on a Pokemon, right? It's just being able to just pick off, get that chip on something I think is really cool. And it's not like Heatran needs much. Magma Storm, Stealth Rock, Earth Power. You can run Taunt, obviously, too, if you really want to. But I just think it gives you some options on this Pokemon. And I like that. I don't think it's... Like, I thought it was worth mentioning, specifically because of the amount of Pokemon that are actually weak to first impression that a Heatran can check. And it's not like Heatran doesn't have good physical moves. Heat Crash, Heavy Slam, Earthquake, etc. So it's not like it's terrible. So just keep an open mind when it comes to Heatran, in my opinion. And I do think that, again, in terms of draft viability, this is kind of nice, man. As a person who's drafted Heatran multiple times, and obviously in this generation you don't have Toxic anymore, so kind of sucks that you're not able to Toxic anything. The fact that this will give me a mean of checking, like even like a faster Zarude or, again, Ogerpon and things like that, I think is really, really cool. And again, just makes it so nice on the draft aspect. Darkrai got Vacuum Wave, not anything too crazy for it. It actually got a lot of little buffs like Shadow Sneak, Future Sight, Crunch, Iso Spear, and Vacuum Wave. Iso Spear is really funny. Just again, I talked about like what Vacuum Wave can help you pick off, like a Bisharp or anything like that too if you're weakened. Opposing Darkrai, Scarf Gren, depending on the tier you're playing. Like if you're playing like the Legend ZA, OU Pet Mod, pretty cool to pick off like Mega Greninja and also Scarf Gren, which are all very common, at least in the previous meta. I'm actually very excited to touch that metagame again because we have so many new Mons and it's going to flip up the metagame 100% from before. So I'm excited. So I think Vacuum Wave is definitely a viable little option on this Mon. A lot of other Mons got Vacuum Wave too. I put Liepard here just because, like, while I don't think Liepard's the most competitively viable Pokemon ever since they nerfed Swagger stuff and even on R, they gave it a lot of little buffs that I think are cool. The first one, of course, is Swords Dance. So you actually have viability as a Swords Dance sweeper. It's not like Liepard is 88 is not terrible when it comes to low. You're literally using this Mon in lower tiers, right? So 88 it's not terrible when it comes to lower tiers. And we've also seen like Nasty Plot Copycat Liepard work back in the day. But Liepard also, just to add on to the Swords Dance set, in terms of physical moves they gave Liepard now, right? We have Fire Fang, Ice Fang, and Thunder Fang. So give it the Elemental Fangs, which are so much worse than the Elemental Punches. X Scissor. Crunch, though I think Knockoff is almost always better on this Pokemon. And then they also give it First Impression too, which I think is really funny. But I put Psychic Fangs here because they gave it a really strong means. Like, they have Play Rough, but I think Psychic Fangs being 100% accurate and being able to break through screens I think is really cool for this Pokemon. And the big one is also they gave it Parting Shot. Now, Parting Shot's interesting because you have Prankster, right? This is a Prankster Pokemon. So being able to Parting Shot around in lower tiers while going for Knockoff, while having like Prankster Knockoff, or excuse me, while having Prankster next to it, plus you're already fast. You're not Prankster Knockoff. You're just your regular 342 speed, 106 base Mon knockoff. I think it just opens up its viability a little bit. Not that it's, again, very, very low tiers when it comes to this Pokemon, but you have the same move pool. You have Encore as well, Prankster Encore. So just some really cool options when it comes to this. Not that Liepard was like the most random Pokemon ever, but I like that they gave it that. Throw. After 1,000 years, they gave Throw Close Combat. Good for you. Is this going to make Throw the most viable Pokemon of all time? Absolutely not. But I'm very happy when Pokemon get stabbed, they do deserve. Other moves they gave it to it are Gunk Shot. So Gunk Shot's pretty cool, being able to actually have strong fairy coverage that's not weak Poison Jab or anything like that. So I like that, being able to nuke fairies. I think the reason that I like Close Combat is because you can now get away with actually using a Gut Set in lower tiers. That is nuts. That's supposed to be an orb. Actually getting away with using a Gut Set in lower tiers and have a strong CC to actually break. And then Gunk Shot's a nice move there too. It's not like it's not like this Mon had a bad move pool, right? It already had Knockoff, had elemental punches and everything too. It just was lacking a strong stab. Like, its biggest thing was Storm Throw. And Storm Throw is kind of like always results in crit, nice, doesn't miss, etc. But that's no close combat, man. That's no close combat. That was like, its niche wasn't really there. It was like a Rest Talk Circle Throw set, which is what everybody was running. On the other side, Sawk now has access to Mach Punch and Swords Dance. Now, Sawk isn't like typically Sawk is your choiced Mon or Heavy Duty Boots, right? It's going to be Choice Scarf or Band with Mold Breaker, or Heavy Duty Boots at Sturdy, or Choice with Sturdy too. That way it can always survive a hit. A little anti-lead. of a sense with this. That's how it ran a lot. Choice Band was really a powerful breaker way back in the day, right? We are long past the generation where Choice Band Sawk was good, but in low tiers at that. I'm not talking about an OU. But Swords Dance Mach Punch is really nice. I think also giving it Drain Punch is nice for the recovery. I think the Swords Dance Mach Punch is big, right? Sawk had Bulk Up previously, which was his only way of boosting it. And it's not like Sawk is weak. 125 attack is strong. But now it has priority to be able to deal with faster mons. It still can keep sturdy. Like, you can still run this at heavy duty boots and have a guaranteed Focus Sash, right? And then Drain Punch for recovery, but I would probably run CC on this for the damage. And then your last move can be some sort of coverage to deal with the poison types, whether it be or ghost coverage and knockoff, right? It can be Poison Jab, which is previously had. It now has access to Iron Head, which is pretty cool. You also give it Blaze Kick as well, and Outrage. Just putting Outrage there. You're not going to use it, but Outrage. Scolipede, woof! Big bust right here. So I talked about how like Roserade can't actually deal with steel types. Scolipede at least has Earthquake, right? And Scolipede also got U-Turn in Legends ZA and stuff like that previously, so I didn't bother to put it on this buff. But Mortal Spin makes sense for Scolipede, right? I mean, we've seen Whirlpool all spinning around. So Mortal Spin is really nice. I like the fact that they give it Hazard Control. I also like the fact that they give it First Impression. I think a really cool set could be something like this, right? Mortal Spin, U-Turn, and then you have your spikes if you really want to, like just a fast spiker that's also getting rid of hazards too. Obviously Gunk Shot, which it also got in Legends ZA, or Poison Jab can be Slash anywhere. But being able to use it as a fast heavy duty boot spiker that can U-turn out, that can also now go for First Impression if it wants to revenge something, that can also go for Mortal Spin now and get rid of hazards if it wants to. I talked about it being able to deal with ground, so you might even just or deal with steel types, so you might even want to put like Earthquake on it too. But I do think the Spikes plus Toxic Spike is the really cool viability that sets it apart from another First Impression bug like Low Kicks, right? Low Kicks First Impression is obviously the tinted lens. That's the big aspect of it. But I think that the speed boost plus you turning out of there on bad match, I think is really cool. Especially like, you might not even have to run Earthquake if you don't want to. Because if you pair this with something like Magnezone on a non-Terra meta, for instance, and Magnezone traps the Steel type, I think that's really cool. So just little options for this Pokemon that give it way more viability. I think Mortal Spin, I'm glad that Mortal Spin had more distribution. I think the Pokemon that get it make a lot of sense too. I guess in Roserade's part, like I always think of Roserade as the Petal Dance, and Petal Dance in the anime is always like a little spinning tornado, and Roserade likes to dance, so a little Mortal Spin, it makes sense. I think it makes sense for it, in my opinion. But Cofagrigus has a lot of cool buffs. I don't even think I put like Psyshock or anything here. I didn't. So Parting Shot is big, right? Previously, if it wanted to get on out of there, Memento. So that's good for helping your teammates. But I think Parting Shot plus Trick Room is really cool. Thunder Wave is nice. Now it has access to both Wisp and Thunder Wave. So it has nice little dual status that it can do. It also has access to Toxic too. This is Gen 9. This is Gen 7 I'm looking at. I'm about to say, that's not the actual one. Like, you don't have to access to Toxic. I know you got Toxic Spikes, which is awesome, but no, they don't have access to Toxic. This one's not in the game, which is sad. Stealth Rock is cool as well, and Lead that can get up rocks and then Trick Room up. I just put little other moves that have some viability. Icy Wind just for coverage. I think Nasty Pot sets are really interesting on this Pokemon. They gave it Psyshock, which again is really funny. Icy Wind and things like that. I love this Mon, one of my favorite ghost types to use ever. And obviously Mummy is really cool too. I just think Thunder Wave just gives so much viability, especially when paired with Parting Shot. And same thing with the Rune, right? Runerigus can do the exact same thing, but can Parting Shot, Thunder Wave, but also now Knockoff. This is obviously the physical counterpart that goes for things like Poltergeist. Poltergeist plus like Knockoff are very anti-synergy, but being able to get rid of items on opposing, especially like on a lead, that can like, imagine just something like, again, very similar Trick Room, Knockoff, Parting Shot, Stealth Rock, basically just full on support, but being able to get up Trick Room and get in your other guys, I think is really cool too. I also low-key like the Lagging Tail on this too. So that way it's always going last no matter what. So it gets up Trick Room and then the opponent actually goes before it, and then it can Parting Shot out. Even in Trick Room, so it'll actually be slower even in Trick Room. I like something like that. Amoonguss. You see that first? Why? But on Assault Vest sets could be pretty cool. Toxic Spike is really nice, raising its viability as well as a Poison type. They gave Toxic Spike to a lot of Poison types, so I like this. I think more Poison types should get access to Toxic Spike. So raising its viability is that, right? As more than just a Spore plus Stun Spore Rage Inducer. Dazzling Gleam is also interesting for lower tiers because Amoonguss, at least in singles, right, Spore is banned, right? Sleep moves are banned, but a Rocky Helmet, physically defensive set, that something like Scrafty won't be able to set up on in front of, or any, like, even Pangoro or anything like that. Just like thinking about like the mons that are 4 times weak to Dazzling Gleam, actually being able to hit them for strong damage, I think is really, really big when it comes to Amoonguss. Amoonguss is currently PU, right? How the Mighty has fallen because there's no Spore. But when you look at the PU tier, just being able to check fighting types with things like Dazzling Gleam, I think is really nice. While also hitting, you can obviously Sludge Bomb a lot of them too, but I just think having that option is big for this Pokemon in particular. And I think First Impression is really funny. I like Dazzling Gleam potentially on like the Assault Vest sets that were running Giga Drain, Sludge Bomb. Sometimes they ran Stomping Tantrum, sometimes they run Foul Play. I think Dazzling Gleam gives you a nice little option for that too. Galarian Stunfisk, having Toxic is cool. Basically just gives it something nice to be able to actually Stealth Rock and Toxic and Protect and Earth Power. That's basically what homie's doing. I just think giving it this gives it some draft viability as a cheap Stealth Rocker that has access to Toxic. So you cannot set up for free. It's not like it doesn't have Foul Play or anything like that too. So I think it gave it nice little viability in that. Okay, so Terrakion got 2 really nice buffs. So first is Head Smash, right? Now, yeah, you can run it on Choice Band, Nuke, whatever. But the big one for a Head Smash is the Focus Sash set that we talked about earlier on Keldeo. But it's just a taunt, Head Smash, close combat. So the idea is you get up rocks and you stop your opponent from getting up rocks, right? Now, the reason this is really cool is because you can knock yourself out when you get down to your Sash with Head Smash, preventing your opponent from going for Rapid Spin or Defog or anything like that too. Obviously, you can taunt on the Defog as well, but it just gives you a super nuke move that can knock out Terrakion. The other, and obviously, if you want to be real and run that on Choice Band, hey, go ahead. Ain't anybody gonna hate on you. The other big one is Heavy Slam. Now, Terrakion actually has 120 base power Heavy Slam versus all the notable fairies. Here's Hatterene. So you're always two-shotting max defense Hatterene, which is something that a non-choice Stone Edge can't do. Sorry, let me put this. 61 to 73. I'll put the other ones. Vizdef Clefable, 57 to 68. There's a few more that come to mind, but let me just look at the OU tier. Emrys doesn't matter to me. That one gets smoked anyway. I know Sylveon also gets 2-shot as well. Primarina is neutral. But I know Sylveon also gets 2-shot easily by this. And, I mean, offensive Sylveon also just dies. Same thing, max HP almost just dies. So I think this is a really good move on Terrakion. Like the other previous poison coverage had. Let's be real, right? Rock plus fighting is incredible coverage. And when you have ground mixed in with that, it's perfect. But Heavy Slam just gives you an accurate move to be able to deal with some of the more annoying Pokemon in the game, which I really, really like. Imagine going for Swords Dance and having to hit Clefable with a Stone Edge. I really, really like this. I think I like this on choice sets. Choice Band, I like this on Swords Dance sets a lot. Even non-choice sets, I think you get a lot of value out of it because Stone Edge into Heavy Slam will knock out a lot of the fairies that I just showed. So a really big buff for Terrakion and just to be able to have the fairy coverage. Virizion got Stealth Rock. I guess when you're giving it to Keldeo and then Cobalion and Terrakion already have it, it would kind of be unfair if Virizion didn't have it. The other thing is Horn Leech. Now, Virizion is a really interesting guy because, like, Swords Dance, Sweeping Virizion, and Calm Mind Virizion are pretty interesting. Calm Mind obviously has the ability to heal itself via Giga Drain. Synthesis is also an option that Virizion does have, but it doesn't always want to go for that. I like the Swords Dance Horn Leech option. It's not like Virizion is really getting kills with Leaf Blade, and while Horn Leech is quite a bit weaker than Leaf Blade, you're still healing 50% of the damage done. And this is pretty big when it comes to Virizion with its 129 special defense. The big one that comes to mind with this is that a Swords Dance Virizion can easily, even if it was weakened at first, can easily 1v1 something like a Sylveon with Hyper Voice, because while dealing damage and two-shotting at +2, you are also getting yourself out of range of Hyper Voice. Now, obviously, if you're at full HP, Hyper Voice won't kill you anyway, but if you're at like half, Hyper Voice will do a lot. So just to show, your Leaf Blade, and it already runs SC Synthesis, which you don't need to do it anymore, but your Leaf Blade, right, at +2 is doing absolutely nothing to this Pokemon. But if you're Horn Leeching, while it is a bit weaker, Sylveon is also struggling to beat you in the same sense. And you can also just run Life Orb, I guess, on this too, because that'll allow your... Let's just do that. That way our Horn Leech actually does enough damage back. But it basically just gives you an option to do enough back and get a lot of recovery back to the point where Hyper Voice actually can't kill you. So I like that. Basically giving it... it's basically physical Giga Drain, which I like a lot. Sorry, I had to take a little break because my boy Splash Play just got his channel back, which was terminated falsely. So I'm very happy for him. I don't know, he does editing for this channel as well as on my pokeaimPLUS channel. So I'm extremely happy for him. I'm glad a lot of people were able to come together. And yeah, anyway, back to this. So Greninja now has access to Vacuum Wave, which is pretty cool when you pair it with Nasty Plot. I don't think it's like anything broken, but it's kind of like how Empoleon will sometimes click Vacuum Wave. Gardevoir will sometimes click Vacuum Wave and stuff like that. Just, it'll catch opponents off guard. I think this is more of a buff for the draft scene than anything else. Heliolisk has Shed Tail. Now, depending on the metagame you're playing, Shed Tail isn't legal or is legal. Pretty cool option for the homie because Dry Skin is your pseudo regenerator, right? Coming in on water moves and being able to Shed Tail pass as well. I'm glad they're giving this more distribution to Pokemon that makes sense as well that are getting it. I don't think it's anything insane for Heliolisk, but maybe some sort of battle spot singles or battle stadium singles you could do with this. Hoopa has Psychic Fangs. Huge buff, okay? Let's talk about it. Zen Headbutt sucks. I am so tired of hitting Zen Headbutt and missing Zen Headbutt rather, right? So 80 versus 85. Not only that, it's stronger. Stronger, which is big for a few things. One, Choice Band Hoopa is a real set with Hyperspace Fury plus like your Drain Punch plus your Zen Headbutt plus Gunk Shot. Psychic Fangs is better because not only is it stronger, just doesn't miss, it also breaks screens. So if the opponent leads off with like a Alolan Ninetales and they go for Aurora Veil, you Psychic Fangs immediately and break their screens. Also, Choice Band Psychic Fangs from Hoopa Unbound. The point difference from Zen Headbutt and Psychic Fangs is big. That 5% difference is the difference between knocking out Great Tusk and not knocking out Great Tusk always. Like you go from having a 50% chance to Oko from level 50 to, or a level Adamant to max HP to having this 81.3% chance to Oko. And then even Jolly has a shot of KOing, whereas Zen Headbutt doesn't. So I don't know why I keep putting 250 that, but it's just a big difference in power, but also you don't have to worry about missing. And yes, you can win games off of Zen Headbutt flinches, that's for sure. But the fact that you can also break Veil, which is a good playstyle, or is a viable playstyle, I think is big for Hoopa. It doesn't matter too much for VGC because I don't usually get to use Hoopa at all. It's a mythical, but cool for us, right? I like it. I think it makes Choice Band even better because now all my moves can't miss on my choice, well, besides Gunk Shot. But now most of my stab moves can't miss, which is very important. Crabominable has 2 priority moves. Has Mach Punch. Pretty cool because it has Iron Fist obviously as an ability, so you can buff that. And it already has access to Bulk Up as well in its move pool. I had already had Bulk Up, and this kind of circumvents its really, really poor speed, so a Bulk Up Mach Punch set. It also has First Impression, which can be cool on Choice Band, Choice Sets in general. This mon you're not really going to see much outside of Trick Room, but I like the fact that it has this. I kind of wish it had this in the current meta right now because with Terra, it could actually be crazy with Bulk Up, Drain Punch, Mach Punch. Having the overall bulk. I always felt like Crabominable had incredible offensive dual typing, right? Fighting in Ice is insane typing offensively. But the fact that it came out in the generation it did means that it's slower. Like, I think if Crabominable came out in generation 5, just like I say the same thing about Como, it would have been broken. But in Crabominable's case, it would need to have like 70 base speed to be around there. But I do like the fact that it now has priority to kind of circumvent the slowness of it. Yes, you can run this mon on Trick Room, but when it comes to singles, Trick Room is not the most viable. We did see a Trick Room team with Hyper Beam Porygon. I uploaded a video yesterday, actually, with that Pokemon putting in, that hit rank 1 in OU. But not all Trick Room teams are going to hit rank 1. Not all Trick Room teams are actually going to end up being good. And then Crabominable is more of a lower tier one. I think even when it comes to VGC, you're not really seeing this one too much. But who knows, that can change, especially now with Hyper Cutter and things like that too. Golisopod has access to U-turn. I love this. Now you can choose when to go out, not when they hit you down. Bro, they gotta change emergency exit. I'm sorry. This ability needs to change. I need to be able to... Emergency exit needs to be the equivalent of playing on switch mode versus set mode of in-game. Whereas at the end of the turn, I can get out of there, right? Before my opponent sends out their mon. Obviously, I don't want the ability to see what mon they're going to send out. That's cheating. But, or is it? No, it is. But I would like that at the end of the turn, after going for an attack, I can switch out. Kind of like how we have the OM called Volturn Mayhem, where what ends up happening is you do damage, and then every single time you do damage, you switch out. I don't want that to happen immediately. I want it to happen at the end of the turn. Just giving you an emergency exit just in case, you know? So I go for Leech Life, I kill the mon in front of me, I get recovery, and then I switch out before my opponent brings in their next mon. Again, at the end of the turn. I would love emergency exit. That's just a little rant about that, but I would love that move to be reworked like that. Gunk Shot's pretty cool too. Give you a nice little strong move to dunk on fairies. You are slow, but with max speed, you are faster than all the bulky fairies, right? Like the new, like Clefable hits 156, Sylveon, same thing. So they're all running like, they're not running max speed at all. So you're able to outspeed them and go for a strong Gunk Shot. So I just like that as an offensive option for this Pokemon. So this is Palossand. I put Fake out there because Pocket Sand. Someone was like in my Scream chat. They were like, yo, how are you having What does Fake Out do? What does it Fake Out with? It's like, y'all never heard of Pocket Sand? But yeah, legit, I think Fake Out's funny for it. That has nothing to do with us viability of that. But I think Nasty Plot's really interesting because Palossand already has like a good move pool. It has Earth Power, has Shadow Ball, has Giga Drain, and things like that. So I think Nasty Plot raising its viability in the lower tiers, like a defensive Nasty Plot mon, seems pretty cool because it's already naturally being able to take on fighting types in the tier. It's usually just going for Stealth Rock though, and then taking a knockoff, and then getting its Rocky Helmet or Heavy Duty Boots or Leftovers or whatever knocked off, and then going for Shore Up after. But Nasty Plot gives it a nice offensive option to actually just boost past them, I think. And I really like that for Palossand. I don't think it's going to be anything crazy. Again, lower tier threat. Same thing, Thievul having Wisp. Just nice little viability if you ever use this mon in draft. It's obviously a stakeout mon, but it's not the best stakeout mon is Mabosstiff. But this is definitely not Mabosstiff. This is definitely not like that great of a stakeout mon, but having access to like Icy Wind, having actually a means of dealing damage, I think is pretty cool. Icy Wind being doubled with stakeout upon switching. Not that you're forcing very many Pokemon out with this, but being doubled upon switching, and then also when your opponent switches out or switches into another mon, and then also being able to lower their speed, I think is pretty cool. But I think Wisp is just a sort of viability. Magearna gets... This mon doesn't need anything, by the way. I'm talking about Magearna as a formality. This Pokemon is getting banned, right? Ever since it got Store Power, there's nothing you could stop this mon from Shift Gear. But I think Power Gem is really funny because you're like, oh man, Volcarona can check it if it Quiver Dance up alongside it. Or like, or Iron Moth now, maybe let it. Nah, the fact that it can Shift Gear Power Gem is just funny. I think Vacuum Wave giving it priority is also really funny. It's not ever going to really need it. But a Combine Draining Kiss Store Power set with last move Vacuum Wave to pick off things like Gambit and also like hit certain steals and things in general before they actually do damage, I think is extremely funny. But obviously that set desires Shift Gear a little bit more just for the speed to be able to not care about Pokemon like Great Tusk, or it wants to run Iron Defense, that way again doesn't care about Landorus, Great Tusk, Gliscor, Garchomp, etc. being able to hit it on the physical side. Just really funny things that they're like, yeah, what else can we give Magearna? They already gave it insane moves in Generation 9. And they're like, oh, what else we can give Magearna? So they just keep giving it. Marshadow has two pretty cool moves. Power Punch and Mock Off. The reason Power Punch I think is really interesting is because, assuming it's actually still in the game, Power Punch is obviously boosted by Technician. And that's the reason why Mock Punch is pretty cool too. A standard Marshadow will be Bulk Up, Shadow Sneak for your priority, which is boosted by Technician, right? And then you have your Close Combat. And then your last move is either Poltergeist or Spectral Thief, depending on it. Depending on if it actually can use the moves. Spectral Thief obviously being able to steal your opponent's buffs, whereas Poltergeist is just stronger. And Poltergeist on choice band sets is ridiculous because then you just run Shadow Sneak, Close Combat, Poltergeist, and then you typically run like Rock Tomb for something like Ho-Oh. But Mach Punch definitely has viability, just being able to be buffed by that Technician. Again, another mon that's probably never going to be allowed in the OU tier. And if it is, it's never going to be allowed for more than a day or two. They will quick ban this mon in general. But I think Mach Punch is still pretty cool as a little pickup for it. It also got Solar Blade, which I think is... Oh, that's excuse me. That was Magearna. Why? What are y'all doing? They finally gave Graplock some moves to be able to use its Technician ability, which I think is really funny. But Bullet Punch and Mach Punch are nice. Unfortunately, the set it really has is only Bulk Up. Yeah, so unfortunately, it only has Bulk Up. I don't know why they couldn't give this Pokemon Swords Dance. 118 attack, it's not going to be too powerful, okay? It has nice overall bulk, but nothing like that. But having Technician boosted, Bullet Punch and Mach Punch is really nice. Having Knockoff to be able to hit the Ghost types upon switching, I think is really cool too. It's very slow mon. It's just weird, man. This Pokemon feels like it came out in Generation 7, not Generation 8, right? Because look how slow it is. I just feel that tier is that metagame is all about slow Pokemon that came out. Everything, literally everything in that tier. But Drain Punch I think is pretty cool with the bulk upset and everything. I think Swords Dance would just be a lot better. And everybody had Sucker Punch anyway. Berserker has, I talked about Persian and Alolan Persian, but Berserker also got access to Spikes, which I think is pretty cool. I think Hypnosis and Thunder Wave are also really fun, niche, viable sets, especially if, like, I think this is, again, more so for draft. If you need a niche Steel type because you decide to get your Steel type round 10 and there's no Steel types left, so you pick up Berserker because not only does it give you a Steel type that can be an Assault Vest user and has, like, Fake Out and Tough Claws and things like that, but it can also set up Spikes. Now has access to Bulk Up if you don't want to use Swords Dance, even though you're typically not running that on the Pokemon anyway. But I just think the big ones are the fact that it can go for Hypnosis, Thunder Wave, and Spikes. I'll also say that this Pokemon having access to Liquidation is also a pretty cool thing. Being able to hit ground types, but your Iron Head, Steely Spirit, or Tough Claws is typically getting hit really hard anyway. I love this for Sirfetch'd. I think Agility is a huge buff because you got to remember that Sirfetch'd has Scrappy, right? So this Pokemon doesn't really care about immunities anyway. So being able to agility boost your speed, and then on top of that, that's really all the coverage you need is really crazy. You have Scrappy, so you also don't care about Intimidate. You have Knockoff for Ghost if you really, really want to, but you're going to CC most of them. Golden Goat, gone with CC. You also have access to Poison Jab or anything like that. You can run this like with Leak, and then have your up to crit chance, which I think is pretty fun. With Leaf Blade and things like that too, if you really want coverage. But I think Agility just gives it nice sweeper potential, as opposed to what it was before, which was, I'm going to come in with a Choice Band, you're going to have no switch-ins, and that's going to be the game. That's it. I think U-turns also ups the Choice Band viability set a lot, because you can just run Close Comment, U-turn, you run First Impression for sure. This is allowing you to deal with a lot of threats, and then your last move can either be Knockoff or really just anything. Poison Jab if you really want to. I truly don't think it matters. I think you just click Close Combat with this Pokemon 100% of the time. And then you have your First Impression when you need a Revenge Kill. But again, a nice little buff for Sir Fetchington. Very, very happy about this. Mr. Rom got Stealth Rock. What are they doing? But a little anti-lead that can set up Stealth Rock plus Rabbids Bin. Little Iron Tread vibes. You feel me? Nothing crazy with this. Freeze Dry, Slack Off, Encore. It already has. So, like, it already has a cool move pool in general. I think just Stealth Rock just adding to its viability. They also give it to Mr. Mime as well. I'm not talking about Mime Galar. I'm talking about regular Mr. Mime too. So again, nice little viability upping these guys. Just fun for it overall. Indeedee got some buffs too. I think it's pretty interesting that it now has Moonblast. So from singles, this is nice because you don't have to run Dazzling Gleam as your coverage for dark types. Obviously, you already were clicking Hyper Voice 2 on Specs Indeedee. Heat Wave is cool too because they got rid of Mystical Fire on it. So gives you a nice means of dealing with steals as well. And I think Wish is interesting because typically what this Pokemon will do on Psychic Terrain teams, it'll run like a Terrain Extender, and then it'll knock itself out with Healing Wish, right? And then just immediately get the guys going. But if you bring it in, you can go for Wish and actually support the Pokemon coming in as opposed to knocking yourself out with Healing Wish. So it gives you like more options to be able to use this Mon. This is Indeedee male specifically I'm talking about. Indeedee female did not get Heat Wave, unfortunately, but it did still get Wish. It still got Moonblast, etc. It also got options like Sing, which I think is really interesting. I also think it's funny that Indeedee male got Vacuum Wave. Like, excuse me, sir, I'm running my Psychic Terrain for a reason. I'm not going to click Vacuum Wave. And it's not like mons that are levitating, Vacuum Wave is not going to be super effective on anyway, right? So you're not going for that. I just think it's really funny they gave it that. I'm so happy that Overquill got Mortal Spin. I'm a little sad that they didn't give it to the regular just Quillfish in general, or even Hisuian Quillfish. But Mortal Spin is great on Overquill. I think Thunder Wave is a big buff as well. Overquill already plays like Quillfish when it comes to draft, right? Obviously, you have your offensive modes that can run Swift Swim, and you have your defensive modes that run Intimidate, get up Spikes, Toxic Spike, and then Pain Split, Taunt, Crunch, Barb Barrage, whatever you really want to go for when it comes to this Pokemon. But giving it access to Mortal Spin gives it some really nice... gives it some really nice ability to actually threaten those steals, because it's not like you don't already threaten steel types with Crunch initially. Like, you're not super effective damage, but you're still doing strong damage coming off that base 115 attack. I think Thunder Wave is nice again, just as your defensive Pokemon. Regular Quillfish already had T-Wave, and it's already a Pokemon that was picked up in draft a couple times that was able to go for Thunder Wave and would stop setup sweepers. Obviously, Haze is an option too, and Overquill has the same thing. But Thunder Wave just gives it even more viability. Like, this Mon shot up another point for me in terms of draft viability, and it was already pretty high value Pokemon for me. All of them are. So the fact that it now has hazard control, I think, is really cool too, while also being able to threaten Pokemon coming in. Like, if a Steel typer wants to come in, they're taking Spikes and everything like that too, and you're still doing Crunch damage to it, and you still have Taunt as well. Mabostiff, the best Stakeout Pokemon, now has access to Knockoff. This is huge, right? Now, Stakeout Crunch is still doing a lot of damage despite what's coming in. Doesn't matter what's coming in. A Stakeout Crunch is still doing a lot of damage. Even if you're a Fairy, you're taking a lot. But if a Fairy type, which most of them are bulky Fairy types, are running Leftovers, they have the recovery, they can Wish, they can Softball, they can do things like that. At least knocking off gets rid of Heavy Duty Boots, gets rid of Leftovers, stops their immediate recovery. So I like that a lot on Mabostiff. I think that's actually a pretty big buff when it comes to it. Now, Mabostiff doesn't really need much coverage outside of that, right? It having Stakeout and it having Knockoff is great, and it already had like Player Off, Psychic Fangs, etc., and those stuff can already nuke Pokemon like Great Tusk upon switching. Anyway, but I think Seed Bomb is pretty cool, giving you a nice little option for ground types. That's actually stronger than its already previous options. like Ice Fang versus C-Bomb, there's a pretty big difference when it comes to it. But I think the big one is having knockoff, having a reliable stab to always click. That's always going to give you something out of turn, no matter what they bring in. The fact that you're always getting rid of items is huge. Even a Great Tusk will not be able to switch in that many times as long as you're knocking them off. You compare that with hazard damage, and Great Tusk doesn't have any recovery. So it's just a big buff from Mabosstiff. I love Mabosstiff. I love this mon so much. And I'm very happy that it got knockoff. It deserved it. Now, Grafai, they said, okay, we're going to make you, just like they did with Sableye, we're going to make you Grimmsnarl. They gave it Light Screen and Reflect. Keep in mind, it is a Prankster Mon. Light Screen and Reflect. Also, keep in mind, this is a fast Mon, too, that can do this, too. So it's unlike like Grimmsnarl and stuff that has to run speed if they want to try and Sewer Power or hit something like something with low kick, like King Gambit or anything. This guy doesn't have to run any speed for that. Still has access to its already great move pool of like knockoff, toxic, etc. They have toxic spikes now too, so you can get up dual screens and toxic spikes before getting out of there. Keep in mind, Grafai also already has U-turn and parting shot in its move pool. So I said keep in mind a lot. My bad. I should have just said it once. But this Pokemon has a lot of cool moves that can actually use this, and I think the defensive utility of this Pokemon, while also being able to absorb Toxic Spike, which is something different than both Grimmsnarl and Sableye, while also being able to get up Toxic Spikes, makes it viable in that regard. Other moves it did get recently, gave it First Impression because they just love. I mean, you're there to impress, right? You're there to impress. They're trying to make a good first impression. I feel like Grafai looks like a mon that is trying to impress you with its art. I feel like it's like standing right. Look at the way it looks. It's standing right next to you as you're at the art gallery, and it's like, well, what do you think about this painting? And it's like some paint on. It's like a cup on the wall with a string coming out. He worked really hard on it for 2 seconds, and just a money laundering scheme. But whatever. He just wants to know your first impression. Otherwise, he'd take you out back if you don't like it. But having that is cool. C-Bomb as well, another little option for ground. But it already had like moves like knockoff. It already had moves like jab and gunk shot and stuff like that. So pretty cool for that. And I like the fact that they're making these mons even more viable, like these prankster mons even more viable. And the difference is too, like you can bring in dark types on certain mons. It's still tough to bring in dark types on Pokemon like Grimmsnarl because of obviously the play rough, the spirit break, the low kick option right there to block parting shot. But like Grafai has a fast U-turn as well, so it can do that too if it really wants to. Scovillain! They gave a nasty plot. At first I was kind of hype about this when I was looking at this on stream, and then I was like, wait a second. This is just growth, but worse, because at least growth. Because the reason I say it's worse because Scovillain is almost exclusively ran on Sun, almost exclusively. Unless you were there during the random battle meta where it was sub leech seeding, mooting everything, and it was so bad that they actually had to remove that set for random battles. But yeah, growth obviously gives you only +1 attack and +1 special attack outside of Sun, but you're never using Scovillain outside of Sun. It is a chlorophyll sweeper. That's the unique grass fire typing out of it. But on the flip side, as you know, Scovillain has base 108 attack and special attack, and now it has access to Flare Blitz, as before it had Fire Fang and access to Temper Flare. So Flare Blitz is cool, just a little strong hit. I like it. I mean, just a little nuke from there. In terms of like physical grass, it only has really Seed Bomb. There's no Power Whip. I wish they had given Power Whip 2 as an option. I'm mentioning Nasty Plot because now you can use it outside of Sun, but there's not a lot of reason to use Scovillain outside of Sun, but maybe that'll change. Who knows? And then there is also other options. They gave it Thunderfang, which don't really matter. Outrage, which doesn't really matter either. Outrage actually might have been cool versus Swave. We don't do the channel bros for bros right now just because there's no time and like we just don't have the ability to all record all the time like that. But Outrage is cool because in one instance I ran Unburden on Scovillain. So Bros for Bros is a channel where we were doing Then We Fights, so you can like randomly have abilities and stuff. So I ran Unburden on Scovillain, and I ran the signature move of Scovillain, Spicy Extract. And what it does is you raise the attack of the opponent by 2 stages and lower its defense by 2. And then I ran the Mirror Herb, so that would give me a +2 attack. And then I had Zen Headbutt for Eternatus, but it would have been really funny to have Outrage. Anyway, this is not happening. But if you want to use Growth with Flare Blitz, Outrage to knock out Dragonite, and then just Flamethrower as your last, or just mix with that, I think that's really funny. But your Flame's doing much Pokemon anyway. Tinkaton has Bulk Up, it already has Swords Dance, is already kind of weak as a Pokemon, doesn't really have recovery, so Bulk Up might not be the greatest for it, but still cool. And then Wood Hammer, so goodbye Clodsire and things like that. Obviously, somebody said, oh, it also got Ice Hammer, but it already had Ice Hammer. I'm not screaming right now, I'm just recapping from the stream the other night. This is straight up for video. But Woodhammer I think is pretty cool too. Kind of how like Mimikyu had Woodhammer, and then it would sometimes run it for Quagsire. And I'm saying this as like it was not random battle instances where you had a Quagsire, your opponent had a Mimikyu, and you had to pray back in the day they didn't have Woodhammer in their move pool. But they did. They did. And they popped you. But I think Woodhammer is just fun. It makes sense that Tinkaton should have every hammer move, right? Look at it. Look at the whole Tinkaton with the hammer right there. Nothing you can do about that. Flamigo! I love Flamigo, okay? Flamigo gets triple axle. I think that's really interesting with Scrappy as well. Like, this is already a cool Pokemon that can kind of just click Brave Bird and things like that, and it kind of wants to differentiate itself from both Hawlucha and Galarian Zapdos, and even Mega Hawlucha, which we don't currently know the ability of anyway right now, so who knows? They could just end up giving it Scrappy. But Close Combat Brave Bird, you turn all your ever clicking on Flamigo anyway. So Triple Axle is nice because if you want to try it in a higher tier, which I've used Flamigo in a higher tier and actually to success, because again, Scrappy Close Combat and being faster than Golden Go means you have a niche, right? You're able to outspeed and you're able to OHKO it, is really nice. And then Mons that can check it are obviously going to be like things like Gliscor, if it's like defensive and can run protect, especially if you're Scarf. Landers with Rocky Helmet, not would intimidate because of Scrappy, and even like Great Tusk on CCs and things like that too. So Triple Axle being able to be a super nuke for those 2 times and 4 times effective Mons, I think is really cool without having to KO yourself via a Brave Bird recall. Though if they have a Rocky Helmet, you're going for Triple Axle. I think Knockoff is also a really nice little addition for it too. They also gave it Waterfall, but it has Liquidation, so there's no real point. But Knockoff is nice as well, getting rid of items. That way you don't have to kick a Brave Bird. For the most part, this is just a Brave Bird Close Combat Merchant, and you're clicking CC most of the time. I love this Mon in lower tiers. Like, such a fun lower tier NU Mon. I also want to note, I don't have it here, but Houndstone did get like Seed Bombs and Headbutt, Shadow Claw, and Work Up. Shadow Claw doesn't even matter. You have both Poltergeist and Last Respects. Last Respects, if it's legal in the tier, obviously you can use it. And then I think Work Up is interesting for its stuff to actually boost its attack without having to use like a weakness posse or anything. Tatsugiri got some cool moves, man. Tatsugiri got some cool moves. I guess in Dozo's case, let me not skip Dozo, even though it's not on the board. It got Whirlpool. You can do some sort of Whirlpool trapping with Curse and things like that. That's definitely real. We've seen Primarina do that before, but Dozo is a little bit slower and at least can rest up. It doesn't do too much for it. But they give Tatsugiri a lot of moves. All right, so first off, Calm Mind. Nice. It already has Nasty Plot, and for the most part, you are Nasty Plot breaking with this with Rapid Spin, and then your dual stab of Draco Meteor plus Surf. But Calm Mind is a really cool option as well. They give it Ice Beam. Again, nice coverage, kind of like, you know, Kingdra. It's like Kingdra already runs Water and Draco, and sometimes I'll have the Ice Beam for the 100% accurate move if it really wants to. Obviously, Dragon Pulse is an option too. This Mon is very much like Kingdra with Dragon Water. Stronger special attack, same special defense, and the rest is all weaker. But Rapid Spin obviously boosted speed as well. Other options as well. Flip Turn I think is pretty cool as well. On like a Heavy Duty Boots Rapid Spin set. Like, for instance, again, Tatsugiri's current move pool is Heavy Duty Boots, Rapid Spin, Nasty Plot, Draco, Water move, right? So being able to Rapid Spin and then Flip Turn and bring out another Mon I think is a really cool addition for its arsenal in the lower tiers. They also give it moves like Scald. So Scald is nice, right? Being able to burn the opponent, actually threaten something with Tatsugiri. I love that. This doesn't mean much for, obviously, when Tatsugiri is with Dozo on the field in VGC and you're just swallowing it and everything. But I think having Flip Turn and be able to get momentum to Pokemon, I think is super cool. Like, I really like that, especially like on a Scarf Tatsugiri as well. I like that a lot. Dark Pulse also in its arsenal. Whatever coverage. I mean, Dragon and Water is basically perfect for the most part, unless your name is Empoleon or Shedinja. So, Dark Pulse, there you go. There you go. Nice Shedinja. Annihilate. Now, Annihilate now is actually a knockoff. This is really cool on like Assault Vest sets and things like that as well. I also put Roar here, but I'll talk about that in a second. But Annihilate having Ashes knockoff I think is nice. It's already tough as hell to switch into Annihilate, and the way people do it is they just don't attack it, they wisp it, or they status it, and they never attack it, and they wear it down with like helmets and stuff like that. So being able to knock off and get rid of helmets like that, again, for the draft aspect, I love knockoff. Also, for those people that draft Tisui and Zoroark to try and wall it, watch out. I think Roar is really interesting too. Now, the reason I like Roar is because people have specific switch-ins to Annihilate, right? To be able to deal with it. You have specific switch-ins. The way the boost Annihilate, but you bring it on U-turn and things like that, so that way Rage Fist gets even more and more powerful. But Roar is interesting because when you pair this with hazards, right? When you pair this with entry hazards, and your opponent is switching into a Pokemon to try and take it, and you go for Roar, they're taking entry hazards, and then you're going for Roar, and then you force them out to another Pokemon that Annihilate happens to have a really good matchup versus, I think it just opens up another style of play for this Pokemon that in draft specifically really good. I think in Battle Stadium and stuff like that can really be cool too. Singles, at least. Depending on it, because Annihilate, if without Terra, is not as broken as Annihilate with Terra and Rage Fist. I think Annihilate, if there was no Terra in this generation, Annihilate could easily stay OU. Yes, it gets boosted on Rage Fist, but you're not able to get out of that Fairy weakness. You're not able to get out of that Ghost weakness, which is something that Annihilate consistently does all the time to flip matchups, which is why I ended up getting banned, that plus Rage Fist. So in a non-Terra, I'm actually very excited to use this in the Legends ZA OU pet mod, which should be up soon. We're working on abilities for that now, but I'm very excited to use it in that because I want to see it in a metagame where, oh, Mega Delphox, Mega Grin does 1,000,000,000% with Nasty Plot. Oh, Clefable has 100,000,000,000% usage, at least in the current one. Oh, Skarmory actually runs Brave Bird, and Mega Skarmory exists, which is super nuke. I do not think this mon is going to be as broken, but I like the knockoff Roar-esque of it, and I think it gives it a lot to deal with. And I like knockoff on Assault Vest sets too. They gave back Excalibur, Psychic Fangs, and Ice Hammer. Ice Hammer is like, you're not going to run this ever on Dragon Dance, right? You're never going to run this on Dragon Dance. You're never going to run this on Swords Dance because first off, it's worse than Loaded Dice, Scale Shot, and Ice Spear. Secondly, while it's 100 base power, again, Loaded Dice, Scale Shot is also 100 base power minimum because you're guaranteed to hit 4 times if you land, excuse me. So it's 100 base power minimum if you land, which is still better. And the cost of not lowering your speed. But I think on choice band sets, this has some sort of viability because while Ice Crash can 2-hit KO, Ice Hammer is 100 base power, whereas Ice Crash is 85 base power. So the power difference is pretty big. Again, the trade-off is that you are lowering your speed when it comes to Baxcalibur, and Baxcalibur is 87 base speed. So it is like a speed tying with the Great Tusk. So making yourself like voluntarily slower is like, eh. That's why I don't think it's like the greatest buff of all time, but I think it has some viability on choice sets. I don't think you ever use it on Dragon Dance, ever, and Swords Dance ever. I think you're just throwing by doing that. And Psychic Fangs is like, whatever. It doesn't really have the moves to be able to fit that, right? Because you always want your Ice move and your Dragon move, because you have Glaive Rush and you have Scale Shot. Both are perfect, right? Loaded Dice sets and even Banded and just Dragon Dance sets are still good without Loaded Dice if you want to run Swords Dance, Heavy Duty Boots or whatever like that. And then you have your Icicle Spear versus Icicle Crash, which are great as well. And then your last move is typically going to be Earthquake because you want to be able to hit the Steel types, right? Even though you're so powerful with 145 base attack, you're still doing a lot of damage. And obviously Mega Baxcalibur as well has more attack than this. Mega Baxcalibur, again, already officially reeled. I'll talk about it. Has way more attack. It actually has 175 base attack. So pretty nasty for it too. And it has the same base speed. So I don't think there's any reason to lower your attack at all. I just think I wanted to mention Ice Hammer as an option, but I don't think it's that great for this Pokemon. The last buff I want to talk about real quick is Surf on Golden Go. Yeah, about damn time. Thematical, makes sense. It's literally on a surfboard. Makes perfect sense for this Pokemon to have Surf. I'm glad they gave it to it. What is Surf actually hitting? Surf would actually be pretty cool with Terra Water right now in the metagame, but I think Surf is just like the trade-off if you don't want to go for Focus Blast and Iron Treads and Heatran, but still want to be able to hit Great Tusk. Surf gives you an option for all three. It's cool into the Fire types with Terra Water if you are able to Terra. It just gives you a cool little option into them as well. I think Surf is a legitimately good and viable move on Golden Go and we'll definitely see play, assuming it keeps Surf in the future. And I think it opens up the draft aspect. I think it opens up a lot when it comes to this Pokemon. So I really like Surf, and I think that just being able to hit Great Tusk, Iron Treads, and Heatran all in one without having to risk Focus Blast, I think is nice. Not that your Shadow Ball is not going to do a lot anyway, but hitting them with super effective Surf I think is really cool too. But that's basically all I got. There's actually a lot more buffs for other Pokemon too, but I didn't talk about them, like Doxbun having access to Flame Charge and Sea Bomb. Stop hating on that mon and give it either Iron Defense or Swords Dance. And there's a lot of other stuff as well, but this is the ones that felt relevant to me, whether it came out to a certain metagame or anything like that. Dedenne now has Fake Out. Yay, it's almost a Pikachu form. And things like that. They gave Malamar Octolock, which I think is kind of cool, but wait a second. How does that work with the Mirror Herb with the Contrary? Ooh, I gotta check that out. Even Genesect got like Lunge and Shadow Ball, which is whatever for it. They gave Meloetta a Flip Turn, but it already has U-Turn, which is really funny as well. There's just a few other options as well, but thank you for watching. This is a long video. If you got to the end, I appreciate you. I doubt anybody got to the end, but I appreciate it either way. And we're going to have some lives of it. Well, I'll probably be streaming tonight as well, especially if they are on Showdown. But leave a like. I'll see you guys in the next one. Check out my previous video yesterday with Hyper Beam Porygon 2 and OU. Peace. Also, I'm so happy Splashback got his channel back. Peace, guys.